welcome to this introduction to the Critical Systems Thinking program, Critical Systems Thinking and the Management of Complexity. With me to talk about the program is Mike Jackson, who will be delivering the program and wrote a book by the same title as the program. So welcome, Mike. Can you give us a bit of an overview of the program?
Yes, thanks, Paul. I think the rationale of the program is relatively easy to grasp. What decision makers at all levels are telling us, whether in business or the social services or in the third sector, is that the main issue they face is complexity, the complexity of the world. And they're also saying, for the most part, that they think the thing that can help them deal with, navigate, manage complexity is systems thinking. Now, there is therefore big demand for systems thinking. Unfortunately, the supply of well-trained systems thinkers is not that high. So there's a systems thinking capabilities gap, a gap between the demand for systems thinking and the supply of well-trained systems thinkers. And this program is designed to try and help fill that gap.
And who will benefit most from joining the program?
I'm hoping that policymakers, leaders, decision makers, managers at all levels will benefit. Complexity gives rise to wicked problems, and wicked problems are what managers and leaders face. So systems thinking is necessary to help them to get to grips with those wicked problems. I also think that the program will be of benefit to people who know a little bit about systems thinking, but perhaps only about one tradition of systems thinking, be it system dynamics or soft systems thinking or cybernetics. This program is an overview of systems thinking as a whole and will broaden people's perspective on systems thinking. We're trying to train the next generation of systems thinkers to have an appreciation of systems thinking as a whole and its ability to deal with complexity, rather than just having a limited perspective on what systems thinking can achieve because they only understand one systems approach.
Could you quickly explain the difference between critical systems thinking and systems thinking more generally?
Yeah, critical systems thinking, which I've been key in developing, I think, over the last 40 or so years, embraces all the variety of different systems approaches and looks at their different strengths and weaknesses. So it tries to take advantage of their strengths while understanding that they're not useful, each one's not useful in all circumstances. You do need a variety of systems approaches. Critical systems thinking helps you to know what they're good at and therefore can help decision makers to choose the right systems approach or systems approaches according to the circumstances in which they find themselves.
Okay, and we've already mentioned that you wrote the book, Critical Systems Thinking and the Management of Complexity, and you've mentioned briefly that you've been developing the approach for 40 years. Is there anything else you wanted to say, just as background about yourself, other than that?
Just that I've been researching systems thinking. I've been teaching systems thinking all over the world. I've been using systems thinking, and I've used it in my work, in my employment, and also use it as a consultant. And I'm absolutely convinced of the benefits that systems thinking can bring. So I'm disappointed, if you like, that it's not more widely used in today's world to deal with today's problems in business and in industry, as well as in other domains. And I'm dedicated to try and get the systems message out there. Hence the book and hence this program. But I'm also worried that systems thinking has become so popular that the words are often used and not given proper meaning. They don't build upon the research traditions that have been developed and tested within systems thinking. So I want to put forward a rigorous program as well that takes advantage of the tradition of systems thinking.
Okay, and the program covers 8 modules. Could you give us a bit of an overview of what's going to be included in those 8 modules?
Yeah. First of all, we obviously look at the need for systems thinking. Science, effective as it's been in solving lots of problems, cannot solve many of the major problems we confront in the world. Systems thinking is a complement to science. So we look at the need for systems thinking. We then look at the rationale behind critical systems thinking, why it's important to have a variety of systems approaches to deal with multidimensional complexity. We then have a look at the variety of systems approaches and what each of them is good at. We look at their strengths and at their weaknesses. This could be quite difficult for people to grasp, but critical systems thinking, I think, makes it relatively easy by looking at just 5 types of systems approaches based upon 5 different worldviews. We then conclude by looking in detail at how you would use critical systems thinking in practice. That is the critical systems practice cycle, the way of addressing multidimensional complexity by taking multi-perspectival views on the world and using a variety of systems approaches.
Great. And finally, what are you hoping that participants will get out of the program?
This is an important program because it's going to change the way that participants think. Most people are brought up with a mechanistic mindset, and most management training is based upon that mechanistic mindset. Systems thinking challenges that. It introduces alternative ways of looking at the world, looking at organizations as living systems, as cultural, political entities, and entities which can disadvantage some groups and benefit others. So it introduces different ways, different perspectives of looking at the world. And more than that, it provides decision makers with practical methodologies for intervening in the world according to those different perspectives. So people who come on this program will be well equipped to go out there and meet multidimensional complexity, looking at it through different lenses and having a variety of approaches which they can immediately use to bring about beneficial change.
Summarize, the program is about recognizing that most of the problems we're trying to solve these days are more complicated than management theory and practice has traditionally helped people try to understand and deal with. That's one part of it. And then in addition to that, it's about helping people look at the world through different worldviews using the different methodologies, each of them being, if you like, a different lens in which to get and formulate a clearer and clearer picture of the problem or situation they're trying to deal with, and then try to deal with it iteratively, making improvements rather than just assuming that there is a right or wrong answer.
Yes, that's right. That's right, Paul. It's a good summary of the principles behind critical systems thinking. And of course, we go into critical systems practice, the way of using this way of thinking in order to bring about change effectively and successfully. The program's been successful so far. I'm really looking forward to starting on another cohort of the program.
Okay, thanks very much, Mike.